Before we get into the video, I just want everyone to know that the placement of these units within this tier list isn't solely based on whether or not their kit is good or bad, but if they're still viable within the meta and if they're really seen outside of the meta. That's all I really want to explain, so let's get right into the video. This is my first video of the year, my first HSR video ever, and my first ever tier list video. And I do believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that my tier list is a really accurate representation of the Nihility units and where they stand right now. We're going to be starting from worst to best, so let's get right into it. So let's get into the bottom tier, which is the home to Silverwolf. Now, she's far from a bad quantum Nihility unit, because she's the only one. But when we look at the current Acheron meta, I feel as if she's definitely not the best choice here. She needs to break enemies in order to apply a debuff, and she only has a 60% base chance to apply a debuff when she attacks, which isn't helpful really in the long run. The only thing she's breaking right now is my interest in pulling her, honestly. And listen, I don't care how much nut you bust to this woman, but she's not seeing the light of day in this meta unless it's a non-Acheron build, and I stand by that fact. Next down here is Luca. Sure, his character design is cool and all, and he can inflict 1 stack of bleed with his skill and debuff with his ult, but that can't carry him up the tier list, especially compared to the rest of the units here. Not only is his skill single target, but he can't even debuff with his normal attack, unless you use his light cone, which most Nihility units can do by just existing. Boring ass unit. And look, the 4 Luca mains could argue in the comments all they want, but if y'all want to sit there hunched over, ping on a schlong of a slightly better Silverwolf, ignoring the better choices, then I'm sorry to say, but you are retard. Sampo's the only unit in B tier, and let me explain why. Sure, he can passively apply wind shear with his normal and skill, but not only is he the only Nihility unit aside from Wealth to have the bounce mechanic on their skill, but the wind shear has to be manually stacked in order to truly get the most out of him. But that's not the issue here. It's the fact that it's RNG. And now look, once it's a single target that he can just use his skill on, you will see the amount of damage his dot can do. But I just don't really see a reason of using him when it comes to like damage output wise. And sure, his ult applies wind shear, but when you try to stack him up against the next tier, people truly just use him just because they like his character.
Appear in the rain. Look back. There is nowhere to go but forward.
And first up is going to be a surprise to some, but I have placed Gwenifin in S tier. She is the spitting definition of a Nihility unit. Not only can she practically guarantee burn with just her basic attack, but she also has a unique ability called Fire Kiss, where it applies to enemies once the battle begins, and the enemy takes 4% increased damage once burn activates. She is one of Acheron's best friends if you don't have the rest I'm about to speak about, and I couldn't recommend her enough. Welt is big meat imaginary daddy, and that can debuff with most of his kit, with an almost 100% guarantee to slow with his skill, guaranteed imprisonment with money back guarantee with his ult, and his technique that also guarantees imprisonment. Jesus Christ. While he doesn't debuff with normal attack, the rest of his kit makes up for it. He's another great pick for Acheron. If you haven't built this dude yet, then I think it's time to do so. And well, speaking of picks, he's obviously a great pick for me, because the things this nigga can do to me is just perfectly summarized by Tectone in this clip.
If I E6 my Welt, I should be able to drop his pants and just throat goat that man. And then every single time I try to get off his dick, he black holes me back on it. He makes the tip of his dick a black hole to where I can't stop sucking him off.
Kafka is right above Welt. Her kit can mostly debuff just like baby daddy Welt, but her ult not only debuffs, but allows her to do 2 follow-up attacks that can also shock your opponents. Her ult also activates other dots on enemies, which further increases damage. I won't be going too much into her since, well, she's basically lightning Welt with a a bit more utility, which isn't a bad thing of course, since she's a must pick most of the time with Nihility units. Black Swan being the must pick wasn't a shock to anyone here, let's be honest, come on. The sheer chemistry they have in battle and in bed is absolutely wild. Black Swan being one of the horsemen of the 2.0 Stellar Jade Extraction Force puts further weight behind her character. She has her own unique debuff called Arcana that can be stacked up to 50 whole goddamn times. 50, not 10, not 20, 50. Not only that, but other dots can create Arcana as well. I personally believe Arcana is the strongest debuff amongst other debuffs, and there's gonna be no one taking that throne for a while. So let's just go down her list of how she can get her Arcana. Her basic attack can inflict Arcana. Her skill guarantees a stack of Arcana. Her ult also guarantees Arcana. Other dots also create Arcana. I'm telling you, she's what other Nihility units wish they can be, and this is why she's at the gateway of the highest tier one can get.
Appear in the ring. Don't look back. There is nowhere to go but forward.
Now that we're at the final tier, these two right here are the 100% must-haves. You may disagree, but I do believe that Pela, yes Pela, belongs in the highest tier of all Nihility. You either go Pela or go die, and that's the code we live by. Not only does she shred defense, lower defense, but also removes buffs off of enemies. Now listen, it may not sound like she belongs here, but trust me when I say that every Acheron team has a Pela, because no one does it like our girl Pela. Listen, and if you build her with an energy regen rope and give her Luca's light cone, she'll constantly gain ult and just be lowering defense with her normal attack. Come on, she's been here since day one and she will remain here for years to come, and I believe that. I stand on that, bruh. Pela supremacy. And last but not least is the emanator of Nihility and with his victim Acheron. When I tell you she is the definition of lore accurate within gameplay, and nah, I win and actually win. The raw power of just an easy zero Acheron without her light cone is ridiculous. Her technique allows her to insta-kill enemies without needing to fight them. On top of that, her ult doesn't change like the rest because she gains her ult when you place debuffs on enemies. And once she gets her ult, I kid you not, she pops a domain expansion and slaughters her victims within the vicinity. And sure, her full power is restricted to 2 Nihility units, but I think that's a plus honestly. With Acheron, Pela, and Black Swan, you just clear content with relative ease. And if you decide to skip for Aventurine, oh my god. Listen, how slow are you? Do you naturally act retarded, or is this on purpose? You're not cool if you skipped her. You're just an idiot. Not having fun is pretty cool, huh? I mean, you know what? It's whatever. I'm sure you play Genshin and pick Mint. Anyways, that's it for my very first HSR video. I hope you found this to be quite entertaining as I did. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. I'm signing off.